The Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service on Monday joined in clamping down on hoarders and smugglers of food items and other agricultural produce as it announced the deployment of more officers to Nigeria's land and sea borders. In a statement issued by the agency in Abuja, it said the move was to support the federal government's efforts to stabilize food prices nationwide and ensure food security in Nigeria. It further stated that the decisive action is part of the agency's mandate to regulate the handling of agricultural products in Nigeria, ensuring they are safe for consumption and available at fair prices to the Nigerian populace. Nigeria's stock market yesterday began the week on a negative note as investors' profit-taking in Dangote Cement PLC, MTN Nigeria Communications PLC, and 35 others dragged the overall market capitalization down by 1.82 trillion naira as Dangote Cement and MTN Nigeria dropped by 10% to 686.70 and 247 naira 50 kobo per share, respectively. The Nigerian Exchange Limited All-Share Index fell by 3,329.55 basis points to 3.15% to close at 102,393.23 basis points from a peak of 105,722.78 basis points. At this time, let's quickly take a look at the numbers. So looking at the all-share index, we saw about minus 3.15% drop there, taking it to about 102.393.23. Let's quickly look at the market capitalization. Of course, inadvertently, we saw a drop also, just about minus 3.15%, about 56.03 trillion naira, just a slight drop anyway, looking at the numbers. A quick look at the top price gainers. So we still see Julie maintaining the top spot, gaining about 9.52% regardless. That's just about 1.61 kobo. Dow Communications has seen a bit of a gain. That's 8.64% in gain. Suno Assurance, ABC Transport, and NACO seeing just about 6.74, 6.67, and 5.86% in gains. Let's quickly look at the top losers. Now, we see MTN losing about 247 naira 50 kobo. That's about 10% loss. Same goes for Dangote Cement. And we see the NGX Group, NEM, and Tantalizer losing about 9.76, 9.74, and 9.52%. Of course, that's about it. So let's quickly look at the sectoral performance also. Now, we see the banking sector also dropping the ball 0.26%, insurance 2.49%, oil and gas 0.28%, consumer goods 0.77%, and industrial goods also losing by about 6.02%. And that's about the stock performance as we have it for yesterday. We quickly go on a short break and I will look at our first topic for the day. Just stay with us. We'll start our conversation in the Horn of Africa, where we take a look at Kenya's terrorism financing and money laundering issues. Now, Kenya is developing new regulations to oversee cryptocurrency trading, citing concerns about increased transactions in virtual assets, leading to heightened risks of money laundering and terrorism financing. Now, a technical working group advising the Treasury is drafting regulations considering the possibility of a standalone regulator for virtual assets. Despite being ranked among top leaders in peer-to-peer crypto platforms by Chainalysis, China currently lacks cryptocurrency trading regulations. So the Financial Reporting Center Director General, Tito Meka, emphasized the need for regulation to prevent exploitation for illicit activities. Kenya's efforts align with the Financial Action Task Force through Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group to improve the integrity of its financial system and avoid potential grey listing. This morning, Esteban Gudici, Senior Policy Advisor at Trasset, joins me to further unpack this. Thank you so much for joining our conversation.
Good morning, Lekan. Thank you for the space, and good morning to your audience too.
Okay, so let's start this way. How does Kenya's lack of regulations for trading in cryptocurrencies contributes to concerns about money laundering and terrorism financing?
Okay, this is a difficult and very new topic. I think that we need to start saying that today we are focusing on Kenya because right now the Financial Action Task Force plenary is taking place, and there is a possibility that Kenya is going to be placed in the grey list of this international watchdog. But it's important to say that this is a problem that all the countries are grappling with, the use of cryptocurrencies. Now, why this is particularly an issue for Kenya? Well, let me give you some facts. It's important to say that Kenya has experienced a significant surge in cryptocurrency usage, with transactions near to 20 billion for the years 2021 and 2022. Also, the cryptocurrency traffic in South Africa has been the fifth in the world. I mean, it's the fifth country in the world trading with cryptocurrencies. This means that we have 4.5 million people using this platform. It's nearly 10% of Kenya's total population. I mean, this is huge. And this has a lot to do with the growth that the country is experiencing because it's fertile ground, the country, for fintech and for new technologies that they are sprouting there. And that's something very positive. But of course, it comes with lots of risks. And you ask me how this is a problem for South Africa. Well, the Financial Action Task Force, very intelligently and wisely, has produced some guidelines and has updated very recently in November 2023 their recommendations, particularly in what has to do with the use of new technologies. And there is a whole set of regulations, of standards of international level, that request countries to have a specific regulation for virtual asset service providers. And at the moment that we are talking, Kenya hasn't enacted that, but as you said, there is a working group tackling this issue because it's important to update these financial regulations for preventing Kenya being grey-listed by the Financial Action Task Force, and also for mitigating the risks of money laundering and financing of terrorism. This is basically the whole problematic.
So can we understand this better? Has there been a history of terrorism financing in Kenya that actually puts the country under the FATF's radar, or the possibility now stems from the fact that the country has largely employed the use of crypto for transactions?
Well, this is not entirely proven that the country or this has been the case, but it is true that there are many cases that have been showcased by the Financial Action Task Force all over the world. There is a guide that was released a couple of years ago with over 100 cases where it is evidence that cryptocurrencies have been used for different criminal activity or for layering. Layering is something that is used when it comes to money laundering to, let's say, launder the origin, the illegal origin of the proceeds. Throughout the past years, particularly in 2023, Kenya has enacted very specific laws. It has updated the regulatory framework for tackling money laundering and financing of terrorism. But of course, now we are talking today about virtual assets because it's something that hasn't been entirely tackled. Now, when it comes to figures or specific investigations that show that cryptocurrencies have been used for financing terrorism in Kenya, I don't have that data, but there is the risk because it's something that is not being regulated. But as I mentioned when I started talking, this is not a problem that only Kenya has. And if you let me go a little bit more into technical details, the Financial Action Task Force standards, they mostly tackle the problem of virtual asset service providers. This means that there is a central authority, like if it was a kind of a trading platform that has users that trade cryptocurrencies. But to me, if you ask me, there is a big problem and a very difficult problem to tackle that has to do with the peer-to-peer transactions where there is no central authority or there is no broker or a company, let's say, that can conduct the due diligence, know your customer. So these are things that are being currently discussed all over the world. And I think that this is a big challenge for all of us.
All right, so you have actually shared concerns about Kenya's trading with cryptocurrencies, but then I'd like to still find out, does it have to do with the country's geopositioning? Does it have to do with the trade interconnectedness in the country and probably high fintech use that increase its vulnerability to money laundering and terrorism financing? Because that was suggested in the report in 2021.
Yes, that's correct. That report, it's the 2021 Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing National Risk Assessment. This is a self-assessment done by the Kenyan authorities, which is based on the National Risk Assessment tool that was developed by the World Bank. And according to this 2021 report, it's true. Kenyans has a geo-positioning and a trade interconnectedness, and also high fintech use by many people who are, they are developing all these things in Kenya that creates a big risk because there is lots of movement, there is lots of trade there. There is a, let's say, a sparkling economy in that sense, but this has severely amplified its exposure to these risks, particularly because the banking industry, the traditional banking industry, has been exposed to some vulnerabilities in terms of money laundering. But what happens with all this with the new technologies? Well, there is another fact that it's very interesting that relates to the use of decentralized economies. The use of cryptocurrencies by many African people, and doing this directly with the mobile phones. This is like the platforms on mobile phones in Kenya has grown amazingly. And this clearly creates a risk because you don't have a central authority, you don't have a bank. It's something that is being done, let's say, even spontaneously by people who do not necessarily have the knowledge, the technical knowledge, but because these platforms, they have been developed in a way that they are very user-friendly, there is a lot of transactions that are being done like this. And this is why we are putting the eye on this problematic. And this is a self-assessment of the Kenyan government that realizes about these challenges. Though, on one hand, there is a huge potential and it's bringing investment and it's making the economy growth. At the same time, it creates these risks. And that's why we are discussing this now.
So let's now look at the standalone virtual asset regulator being proposed by the technical working group. Now, what are the expected roles it should play in tracking and nipping illicit financial activities in the country?
Yes, this is being championed by the director of the Financial Reporting Center. They understand that there is this problem, and they are currently working with a working group. They have even commissioned a study to a blockchain association in Kenya. And particularly what I have seen, what I'm aware of, is that they are drafting new regulations in terms of having a standalone regulation that is going to be cross-sectoral, meaning that it's going to help for all kind of issues that the country can be grappling with that are related to the use of cryptocurrencies. It's interesting. I've been talking with some people, and it's interesting that there are going to be specific regulations for everything that has to do with the initial coin offerings. This is when a new coin is being released, how this is going to be done, how it's going to be monitored. And this is something that over the past years, there was no control whatsoever. So it's something that it's amazing that Kenya is getting into this. And they are also developing the laws, of course, in relation to digital asset exchanges, which the Financial Action Task Force nominates them as the virtual asset service providers. This is one of the biggest requirements of the Financial Action Task Force. There are also being some policy developments in the sense that they are taking into consideration the whole situation and trying to see in which direction Kenya is going to go, in the sense that if they are going to make it difficult to use cryptocurrencies, or in a certain way using them in a positive way. And I think that this is the right way to go. And this working group, it's also focusing on other legislative initiatives. And well, I already mentioned the Blockchain Association of Kenya is being involved. And also they are engaging central banks because the central bank, because, well, the bank needs to be involved in these kind of things. And as you may know, there are some banks that they're starting to work also with cryptocurrencies. So those are basically the measures that I'm aware of that Mr. Micah has proposed.
Well, despite what it is meant to achieve, some investors and users feel concerned about the possibility of monitoring and controlling the cryptocurrency world in Kenya. Why is that? Chainalysis ranked Kenya among top leaders, or dealers rather, in peer-to-peer crypto platforms. So some people feel that won't these regulations sort of instead stifle an already burgeoning crypto space in the country?
Well, that's a very good question, Lekan. I'm going to give you my personal opinion on this. What I think is going to happen. I mean, when it comes to peer-to-peer transactions, I really don't see how this can be very regulated. I mean, this has a lot to do with adoption. How many people are going to be involved in the crypto world? This is something that has been discussed over the past 10 years. I'm sure that you're aware that right now we have a bull market with Bitcoin, or it appears that it's starting again, meaning that more people might come to use these kind of assets. And the problem with the peer-to-peer, the problem, or also it can be seen as an advantage. I'm not going to say it because, to my understanding, one needs to take a kind of political position to say if he's against or for. Well, but the situation that we had here is that this cannot be easily monitored. I mean, if I have a crypto wallet that I have open, that it's not necessarily attached to my name, I mean, there are ways to trace that. There are investigations. For instance, just to make a parenthesis, there was this cyber attack in a company in the US. They asked for ransomware. The ransom was paid, and the FBI managed to track down, because if this is done, it can be done. But this, at the time being, requires lots of knowledge, technology, capacity building for law enforcement. It's very difficult to do this. And if you have an expert using wallets, crypto wallets, and they start layering and doing these things, it's super difficult to get to these places, especially if they're using different techniques. And as you know, all these problems nowadays, they are of a purely transnational nature. I mean, these things can be done from remote places. And well, you ask me how do I see this? If some investors, they see it as a problem, if this is being regulated. Well, I think that we are a little bit far for having stringent regulations where everything can be controlled. Governments are really grappling with this, and I'm saying this objectively just as facts, without taking any position if this is good or not.
All right, Esteban Gudici, Senior Policy Advisor. It was nice talking to you on the show. As regards this, we'll to connect with you some other time, even as we look at other areas. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lekan. Have a nice day.
And you too. The latest labor force survey revealed that Nigeria's unemployment rate increased by 4.2% in Q2 2023 to 5.0% in Q3 2023, with a decline in the labor force participation rate from 80.4% to 79.5%. The report adopted a new methodology showing a decrease in the unemployment rate from 5.3% in Q4 2022 to 4.1% in Q1 2023. Now, in Q3, the employment to population ratio was 75.6%, with 87.3% of workers being self-employed. Unemployment rates were higher among those with post-secondary education, that's about 7.8%, and youth aged 15 to 24 years, which is about 8.6%. So the informal employment rate decreased slightly to 92.3%, and time-related underemployment increased by 12.3%. The report has faced criticism for not reflecting the current realities, and KPMG projected a further rise in the unemployment rate to about 40.6%. This morning, we're being joined by Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO of Share Dynamics Investment, and he will be talking tomorrow on this. Thank you so much for joining us on Business Edge.
For having me, Bacon.
All right, it's a pleasure having you around. Now, looking at this new methodology that has been adopted by the National Bureau of Statistics, do you think it can be considered as a reliable tool in assessing Nigeria's unemployment figures?
Never. It's not. Remember the former NBC director, Yemi Kale, said that this was something that they tried to impose on him before, and he refused it. Because that's not the true, like the KPMG have said, that's not the true reflection of what happened in Nigeria. What they are saying in that report, their own new statistic data, is what is, they say it's global best practice. But again, when it comes to global best practice, they need to know what it means by global best practice. In the developed economies of the world, when you are working per hour, you are being paid So depending on your qualification, and there are people that do up to 3 or 4 jobs. That is why they use that as a yardstick. But in Nigeria, you are saying that anybody that have an employment almost an hour in a day is now classified as being employed. What about the following day? Does he continue to have? Some of them will have this employment just for an hour in a day, and they will not have it for the next 1 month, even sometimes 2 months. So it's not a true reflection. It's just, and finally, I think the MBS is losing its independency in terms of bringing out key economics data, especially when it has to do with employment. And the reality on the ground is worse than what they are giving us. I totally don't agree with it. I've said it before and I say it again. It's a political move. It is not the right thing.
So how then do changes in the unemployment rates align with the current economic challenges and realities faced by citizens of the country?
Look, the rate of poverty is high. Companies are shutting down. Companies are not shutting down, reducing workforces because of the high inflation, high cost of doing business, microeconomic instability, insecurity. A lot of foreign companies are even leaving the country because of FX volatility. And so you can see all that, and that's the effect. You can say that we'll be able to employ more Nigerians. These are the risks that we are facing as a nation now. So the main reason why we are facing all these things is what I just mentioned. So, and again, we have not seen the end to it unless something is done in the shortest possible time.
Before we talk about what can be done, in as much as the methodology adopted in arriving at this particular figure might not really be what it should be, let's look at the rising unemployment rate in the country for quarter 3, 2023, down to the first quarter in 2024. What impact do you think this might have on the overall economic landscape of the country?
Lagos is already having an impact on the economic landscape of the country. You could see a lot of protests. Again, even the protest is all about hunger. They are not even talking about, when you talk about hunger, I think of people that does not have employment. And if you look at inflationary pressures in developed countries like UK and also United States, you realize that those inflationary pressures have gone down. But again, why has it gone down? Why cost of living, cost of food and everything is high in the US and other states. But again, they have one data that has helped to reduce the effect, the social effects on it is employment. A lot of people are being employed in these countries, and that's why you've not seen the kind of effect that high cost of living and high cost of housing is having on that comparable to ours. So what we are dealing with is a monster. You know, we are already dealing with a monster called inflation. Now we are dealing with a monster that has to do with unemployment. And like I said, majority of what we are seeing now is caused because of a lot of companies are shutting down, and a lot of countries, multinationals, are leaving this country in every sector of the Nigerian economy. And the reason why they are doing this is because of the instability in terms of cost of doing business, especially any business that is driven by FX.
So quickly, let's quickly look at what administrations have been doing in the last couple of years. Year in, year out, they come when they campaign, and of course, they try to assume the seat of power. The talk has always been, oh, we are going to provide jobs, we are going to make sure that people are gainfully employed and all that. And now you've talked about the fact that the cost of living, the cost of doing business is not really favorable. So what is it that the administrations or these governments are missing and is equally leading to a decline in the labor force participation rates?
Lagos, they are not connected to the people. And like your report rightly pointed out, it said about 78% of Nigerians are self-employed. And now when you look at that data, and then you look at the fiscal policy and the monetary policy, realize that 78% of those self-employed Nigeria have gone down to, maybe we'll be looking at about like 30% if we want to face reality.
Well, that's actually it's 7.3% anyway of workers being self-employed. So you can go ahead.
You said about 87.3%.
Yeah, 7.3. Yeah.
So when you look at that 87.3% that is self-employed, as we're talking now, I can assure you that it's not up to that amount again, because a lot of them do not have job. I'll just give you an example. The person those that used to import cars into the country, now duty have been raised to almost 56%. How many people are bringing in cars now into the country? That sector is almost going dead already, because nobody seems to be bringing any cars because of the high cost of clearing. So the people that work in that sectors are out of work. So when you talk about self-employed also, remember the guy that owns a pharmacy that normally buy drug directly from GSK. GSK is no more there. They are now importing that drug. And he's not even having the financial made to even import to participate when those imported drugs are brought into the country. You look at the consumer goods sector. Nigeria is a highly consumable economy. Our economy is driven by consumables. And now, how many Nigerians are able to consume enough? How many Nigerians have earn enough living wage to even be able to have enough purchasing power to consume? So the consuming sector, which is the manufacturing sector, the food and agricultural sector, will definitely be shutting down, because a lot of farmers will not be able to go to farm. And even when they go to farm, when they bring this product, a lot of people are not able to buy it like they used to buy it before. So you see what the government should do as economy. You look at the 87%. Why do you keep increasing rate on investment? Because the person that is bringing car is creating job, is bringing effects into the economy, is doing an investment in the economy, and then you tag the price of effects for expenditure for governments at 800 naira through your budgetary allocation, and then you tag that of importation of goods into this country at 1,510. So we need to begin to look at the physical side and the monetary side. They are disconnected from the people. All the government is interested in at the moment is revenue. So the government should begin to look at its people as a resources to grow the economy. And how can they help these SMEs? The 87% of these businesses, how can they be helped? They need low funding. We don't have that, because when you go to borrow from the banks, it's high cost. And again, the microfinance bank are almost non-existent. So there's a law that government need to put in place. Government needs to begin to take a bite of their revenue and begin to see how they can grow the informal sector, which is 87% of this Nigerian economy.
Well, you actually, a while ago, lamented the poor purchasing power of the people, but I'm not sure if you probably have seen the video of the current president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, while campaigning, saying that his administration will try as much as possible deliberately to slow or reduce the purchasing power of the people to stabilize the economy and slow down the economy. So, of course, would you say that was an erroneous policy in its first place?
When you talk about slow down the economy, when you say reducing the purchasing power of Nigeria, he was relating that there will be a credit system. I think that's what he said, that they will create a credit system. Where is the credit system? They've not created it yet. And how could you reduce the purchasing power of an economy that is driven largely by consumables, by purchase? You should be thinking of increasing the purchasing power of every Nigerian so that businesses will come up growing up. So I don't ascribe to that, whatever video. I have not seen that video. And then if that video is trending now, it will be good, so that a lot of Nigerians that voted for him maybe may have not have seen that video. If they have seen that video, they wouldn't have voted for him, because how can it be? So that means it's deliberate. What the policy that is driving now, where cost of living has gone up, yet the living standard of the average Nigerian is still the same, is his manifesto. How can such a manifesto that would drive a lot of Nigeria at today, we said about 125 million Nigerians are poor. How can you come with such a policy that will drag more Nigerians into the poverty gap? I don't ascribe to that at all.
Finally, before I let you go, Mukhtar, now, what initiatives, do you think can be introduced to encourage formal employment and reduce the prevalence of informal employment in Nigeria, if that could be a way to probably improve the employment situation in the country?
Lego, I don't think there's any way formal employment. I don't know how much of formal employment we can have, because industries are not coming. And the largest employer of labor in any economic is the service sector. The service sector is largely driven by infrastructure, especially power. So how much of that are we ready to invest in? So that's what we need to begin to do. The largest driver of any economy in the world is the service sector. But for the service sector to strive, there must be infrastructure. And the major infrastructure that the service sector needs is power. And that power is non-existent. So those are part of the things that they need to look at. Government should begin to think of paying lip service to power. They need to build power. We need to have more power. We need power. That's what we drive. That's the key to industrial revolution. And once you have industrial revolution, then you create a lot of employment. And that is not happening yet. Then government should also think of cost of doing businesses. Like I've said, they should take a bite of their revenue, because as it stands now, most Nigerian businesses, this self-employed business that you talk about 87%, are driven by importation of goods into this country. But very well that you have to pay so much on tariff, then you are killing those businesses. So the government should take a look at taking a bite at their revenue. And thirdly, they need to partner with the SMEs to come up with a strategy whereby they will be able to borrow cheap funding so that they can grow the economy. The informal sector is the life wire of the Nigerian economy. And like your reporter rightly pointed out, 87%. And so we only have 13% in the formal sector. The government need to concentrate more on the informal sector and see how they can help them strive.
Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Share Dynamics Investment, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate that.
My pleasure.
So that's it on the size of our show this morning, Business Edge. Do not forget that you can visit our social media handles at News Central TV. You can also head on to our website, www.newscentral.africa, and equally download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. Definitely we'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. West African time, as we look at other issues as it affects Africa and Nigeria. I am Lekon Obanjo. Enjoy the rest of your day.